Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I am your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from 1985. I'm listening to Night Rangers, A Touch of Madness, or is it Ozzy Osbourne's The Ultimate Sin? No, it's, I know what it is. It's A Touch of Evil with Orson Welles. That's the movie we're going to be reviewing here tonight. A classic by all standards in all sorts of ways. I'm looking forward to talking about this. Of course, my best man from the Midwest, RDV, and my other best man from the Midwest, Easy E, Eric Breen, joining us tonight here. Gentlemen, film noir, all the stuff about that we've never really talked about too much, what makes a film noir movie. When I think of noir, I immediately go to this film. I don't know if it's the longest continuous tracking shot at the beginning that sucks me in, the constant wavy breeze in the background, Charlton Heston playing a Mexican. But I want to, and I would say this out of all seriousness, I think the biggest compliment I'm going to give this film, and then RDV, I'll go to you for your initial take, and then Eric's. But there was an old comment that I remember Charlton Heston in a speech in the 90s. I used to see him on his book tour here in Central Florida. Somebody asked him a question about Orson Welles in this movie, which I hadn't seen at the point. It made me go see it. He goes, "What can you tell us about Orson Welles?" And Heston looked at the guy in the audience who sat next to me, and he says, "You know, I'll be honest with you, and it's like I say here in my book. When you come out of the gate as a young man and you make one of the best movies of all time, whether people like it or not, how does anybody follow it up? Because there's one thing that Orson Welles had, and he had it in spades, regardless of what happened the rest of his career.
With Twinkies?
Talent. It's talent. When you talk about God tiers and acting, directing, writing, and this and that, it's very easy, especially in the old age, that I knew Orson Welles shilling for Paul Masson wine and video games and stuff like that as a fat guy on Johnny Carson's couch. This guy was absolutely a complete stud and belongs in God tier when it comes to writing, directing, everything. The man just has it. He's phenomenal in this movie. If he's not in this movie's not as good as it can be, even though I love me some Heston. So I'm going to give this movie a lot of praise with some scenes and stuff about it, too, because this, to me, is, you know, like I say, the bedrock. It's a gold standard of this type of a film. Now, RDV, I don't know if it's the first watch for you. What's your initial take?
It is the first watch for me, and you guys are going to be disappointed because I did not like this movie.
You did not like it because?
Charlton Heston playing
Fair
a Mexican,
enough.
and it just, he came up on such an unlikable character. There's one scene in the beginning that made me laugh. The guy who eventually gets blown up. Before that, everyone walking in front of the street, I identified that every single day. Get out of the road. I'm trying to go through. You know, people just jaywalking.
That's Mexico. That's third world country.
Well, here's the thing. I had no idea. I just knew they're on a border, but I don't know that they mentioned where it was supposed to be, Texas or whatever, Los Angeles. You know, it just, yeah. But right away, though, I'll say this: you come across, you introduce all these characters, and I like Janet Leigh. But yeah. I thought she did well in this, you know, and I apologize. I don't know who the girl with the cigar is, you know, but I found her intriguing.
That's another day trick.
Okay.
Massive movie star of the 30s and 40s.
Okay.
One that you would go to bed for.
She was just chain smoking, man, all the time.
Love it. She was seductive.
But pretty much, it was like a clown show as far as the cops. I don't know if it was intended to be that way, but Orson Welles, you know, plays well here. He plays a good bad cop, I should say. Mm-hmm. I thought he was does pretty well here, but all the other characters were just kind of felt like I was watching West Side Story with the Sanchez bros.
We'll talk more about that as well as your thoughts on Heston.
But Janet Leigh in a 90 made up for everything.
Yeah, I hear you. What about you, Eric? I know you're probably familiar with this film. What's your take on this?
Well, I disagree 100% with my esteemed colleague's take.
You would.
I think it's one of the most brilliant movies ever made.
Nice. Is it up there with Commando, that level?
Yeah. It's my number 3 favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
And I learned something recently in an interview with Charlton Heston. Who, by the way, it doesn't matter that he wasn't Mexican. That's why they called it acting. He used to be able to do that. And he didn't play him as a Mexican.
No,
he played him, you know, as of Mexican descent, but completely, you like this character you feel had lived his entire life north of the border. Anyway, when they were putting this movie together, they'd already gotten Orson Welles to play Hank Quinlan, but they hadn't found a director yet. So they went to Heston, and he goes, "Well, why don't you get Orson Welles to direct it?" He's pretty good. And they go, well, okay, we'll ask.
He's pretty good.
They said, would you be willing to direct this? We can't pay you anymore, but he goes, I'll do it if you let me rewrite the script. And he rewrote it from word one to word last. And that's why this movie's so good, because you say he's God tier. I say he's the top of that God tier. I don't think anybody has ever been more talented in more facets of movie making than Orson Welles. There's nothing he couldn't do.
And I think one of the interesting things about Orson Welles that gets lost too, and RDV, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to mention it, is because we like to watch older films, and we'll watch everything with Humphrey Bogart, and just because he's so charismatic, right? Whether the film's this or that. I think the thing with Orson Welles is that he's one of the first guys that could act, write, and direct, and he could do them all great. And nobody can do that. They just can't. About the only thing he didn't do in his film was score it. Seriously. When you're young and you make one of the best movies of all time, and honestly, people point to two movies and steer me if I'm going wrong here, Eric. This is how, growing up in the 70s and 80s, I came to understand movies at that time. They always talk about Gone with the Wind, which actually is a very good movie. I don't care for a lot of it in there. I think it's a bit, hoity-toity, but the whole male-female relationship in there with Frankie Scarlett, I don't give a damn, and it makes sense, and he's phenomenal in it. Not my type of movie, but it's a great movie. But then you've got that, and then you've got, of course, Orson Welles' movie, Rosebud, the one about Citizen Kane, which is trippy. I saw that at an art house here in Orlando when I was a teenager, and I go, out of those two films, which one I prefer? And it would be that one. Even though I didn't know the guy or whatever, there was something about the film in and of itself that was very visual and stunning without being, I thought, gimmicky. And that's just, when you're like 20, 25, like Orson Welles, and you can produce that, Jesus Christ, you got 50 more years of your life to try to come up with something. What do you do? And I think the answer is do what Orson did. So, you know what? Give me complete creative control. Let me do my thing. And you got a somewhat new medium, this film noir here. And to be able to take something that's relatively new and just say, guys, hold my beer. Let me show you how it is. Boom. I mean, I just think to make one great movie and then some other movies, okay, that happens. To make two fantastic ones at least, wow. I to me, this is up there. I really, really agree with you.
He would act in movies like this to help finance what he wanted to create, of his own productions.
Mm-hmm.
Where he would have been more happy to do stuff like Macbeth, but he needed money to do it, because I saw an interview with him recently, and he basically said, people just assume that you make movies and you've got all this money. And he goes, I'm not rich. I don't have a home on the villa. He goes, I've got to work to finance what I want to do. And he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
And when you have that singular vision, I think it clearly says that, there's going to be certain lines that, you don't want to cross or negotiate away to. And I appreciate it, because he's one of the first guys outside of the studio system that said, no, this is how it's going to go. And, speaking of studio systems, I think obviously one great one in Charlton Heston. It's interesting, RDV, because you mentioned you didn't like him about it, and I want to dive into that with you, because I'll say this. A lot of people around Heston's time frame, and I'll throw William Shatner in that category as well, they're classically trained actors. Heston went to Northwestern, actually, and graduated from there. He did the summer Shakespeare Festival stuff to get some credit and all that too, just like Shatner. So by the time they came on, regardless of how they spoke or how they acted, they had a thing where they were very considered studied, basically. It's not like today where you just kind of make $1 million on something you learn as you go and still kind of shitty at or whatever. But tell me more, because you're not the first one like Shatner or like Heston said they go, they're hammy or they're not believable. Was it like that from the get-go, or what did you think, RDV?
It's just that he came out very well, first of all, he's supposed to be Mexican, but he came out very I guess they're supposed to be on a honeymoon with his wife,
mm-hmm.
or something like that, and then he just was more self-absorbed and kind of ignored her, and just, I don't know. It's just it just felt like it was overacting. Like Heston, I like Heston in certain roles, I like him in Planet of the Apes, because
mm-hmm.
it fits more his style, more kind of weird, and also I liked him in I'm trying to think what his other role, his big one was, but like I said, it wasn't even really much of the Heston. The problem was I just felt like I was watching a circus of everything.
It's a bit gonzo. I agree.
Yeah. And I gotta say this is my first Orson Welles movie or whatever ever. I've never seen or watched anything he's done before.
Okay.
Been in. So but yeah, it just the whole movie is just was a snore fest to me. And I'm not saying it's a bad movie, that no one else should go watch it. I said if you like this type of stuff, I would definitely recommend checking it out. Just for me, compared to what I just watched, Laura, it was complete opposite for me at effect, and I just couldn't really get into it.
I think for this film, I mentioned at the very beginning that you get this extremely long, it seems to be one tracking shot going through of them walking through and cars going around. So what's interesting when you watch this, to me, that really jumps me in, where, say, Laura did not do that for me, other than the plot, was that you've got a lot of stuff going on in the background. You got a lot of sounds. You've got the wind constantly blowing in the background. And I go, I don't know why Orson picked to have that in while they're filming these guys talking and they're looking up in a tree behind them in the evening is blowing. But when half their faces, in black and white light, this and that, I don't know. All of a sudden, it just feels mysterious. I don't know how to explain it, and that draws you in.
Also,
and then the bomb that goes off at the very beginning, you're like, there's a shit ton of stuff going on, a lot of movement, a lot of action, and now you've got the plot. Hey, was it on this side of the border or that side? And he was getting ready to cross over with his wife because they're both on different sides of the border. And then you've got Orson Welles' character coming over. I'll call him Fat Cop. And then they kind of don't like each other, and he's anti-Mexican and all that. So within 5 minutes, I'm hooked. I don't know what's going on, but there's a lot going on, and that's all I need to know from that point.
I had no problem with the racism in this movie because as of the time, it's just if it was a weird choice to put Heston in there because we just watched Heston in Secret of the Incas, and that seemed more like his type of role. This felt like he was just kind of miscast, or they couldn't. I don't know why they threw him in the movie.
I think you're seeing him being young in that adventure type role, because Secret of the Incas, I think, is a great analogy, and that is Indiana Jones. I mean, Indiana Jones comes from that. It's not just a made up thing. You see it, you go, oh my God, right? And then as he got older, he became more of the in charge type personality, which I agree with you. To me, that's his natural
thing. Did they not
thing.
have any Mexican actors they could have put in his role?
The only person that would, there were a couple. Like maybe Mel Ferrar, or I don't even know if he was
Ricardo Montalban, maybe.
Ricardo Montalban was going to be the other one I was going to say, but
yeah,
I don't think that was what they were going for. I think they were going for someone who may have been Hispanic, but has basically been he's Americanized.
Americanized, yeah.
I mean, there are people that, I said there are guys like I watch a lot of baseball, obviously, and 40% of the players are Latin now. And you see guys that can't speak English to guys that Kike Hernandez doesn't speak Spanish.
Yeah, because
that's neither here nor there. But
because the reason I say it is when I see Charlton Heston, I see him in every role. It's the same role, just like Shatner, same type of role. There isn't much difference.
Yeah, I'd say Heston's a little more talented than Shatner.
I'm not saying that. Yeah,
couldn't picture him, leading the Ten Commandments. But
Shatner,
getting back to the movie, I said, you call it a circus. I said, this was a story of, corruption at its core,
sure,
between the Grandi crime family, and I'm making air quotes, and because that's what Vargas is in town. Because I'm not even sure I don't think his character even lives in Mexico, but he's been called in to help investigate the Grandi family for corruption. Stumbles onto this. Is it right? Right place, right time, wrong place. How do you want to look at it? When the car explodes, and he has to work with a corrupt cop, and the levels that both Grandi and Quinlan will do to protect their way of life, and then it intersects. They in the way to frame Vargas's wife to get him out of the way, and I said it so, and how that eventually, when two corrupt entities come together, eventually, inevitably, one will turn on the other, which is what happened. And how, and they basically, and he gets some help from Schwartz.
Yep.
Yeah, and they kind of put the pieces together. But then, like I said, when you find out at the end of the movie that, because yes, he did plant evidence on Sanchez.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out he didn't need to, because the kid was guilty. So even though Quinlan was corrupt as hell, he was also a very, very good cop who bent the rules to get the results he wanted. But usually they were the right results, just gotten to for the wrong reasons. And something else I said, they come up with this. Looking at this thumbnail. Did you know that? When look at those two pictures. Heston was 35. Orson Welles was 43.
Yeah.
Look how old he looks in that picture.
Yeah, I was looking at in his Wikipedia. I was looking at photos of him when he was 22 years old. He looks like Pixel.
Oh, look at Citizen Kane. He was 26 when he made that.
Yeah,
and he's a kid, and it's funny because he plays Charles Foster Kane from early 20s into late in life. How they made him up to look old.
Yeah,
I guess they didn't count on the physical expansion.
Yeah, to the 1930s, the radio show for the Shadow, he was the voice.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I was like, that's kind of cool.
You do know he's the one RDV, and I'm not trying to sound belligerent here, but the real famous thing back in the day, because radio's still a thing up until the 80s or so. He's the guy he's the guy that did War of the Worlds that got everybody in the panel.
I never, like I said, never watched the movie. H.G. Wells, or no, he's a part of.
But it was on radio. He was broadcasting, and people thought it was real.
Yeah.
He said that the ratings for that were terrible. Everybody thought that everybody in the world heard that, but they were getting. I said he was getting boat raced. I think by I can't remember who it was, Edgar Bergen, Charlie McCarthy, or something. Whatever the big show was at the time. Yeah. They said not many people saw this or heard that, and it's just grown into this giant. Everybody assumes that everybody in the world heard it, but no.
I
thought that was interesting. Because I learned a lot watching this interview with him. It was
that's like
an interview.
Well, you think about it on TV when you have the president interrupts their television thing, and it's like not everybody stays on the channel. Some people just turn the channel.
No, I'm just saying that over the decades since that aired, people just assume now that everybody in the country was tuned into that radio.
Right. The fish got bigger.
Well, yeah, the rumors it caused mass hysteria. People were panicking and stuff.
Which it did among the people that saw it, but that was even that was overblown over the years.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's interesting, about this film, it's obviously got a lot of adult themes in with corruption and all that. RDB, I cannot disagree with you about at least one character I think is a bit of a goof here. But the one thing I do want to point out is you made a comment earlier about Janet Leigh's character. I think this movie was before Psycho. I think Psycho was 60. So we get to see her in it. Obviously, she and Tony Curtis produced Jamie Lee Curtis, if I'm correct, if I remember stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we would see her in The Fog, and also I think Halloween H2O or whatever it is later on in her career. So it's kind of nice when you go back and go, oh, she was in Touch of Evil and Psycho, and was she in The Birds as well?
Holiday Affair.
No, yes. Birds was Tippi Hedren, I think.
Gotcha. So the one thing I thought, okay, they're a newly fresh married couple. It's basically like Mexico, United States kind of thing. Striking dark features in Heston's character. She's obviously got the complete opposite, frosty blonde and all that pale face sort of thing. So there's this contrast here. So I'm not saying good, evil, black and white sort of thing, but it is there. But the corruption part I find is interesting is because as a newlywed couple, their relationship can get corrupted very quickly because his loyalty and duty, like especially back in the day, there is to solving this case, even though it may or may not be in his jurisdiction related to other stuff. He takes it very seriously, just like he's trying to take very seriously protecting her, but he almost doesn't so because she gets kidnapped. They juice her up with, I think, was it heroin or whatever like that to keep her on the down low. Things happen or whatever, and then at the end he's kind of relieved. So it's
they basically
everything you expect in these kind of movies. You can see this happen at the beginning when the guys go to talk to her and they snap the quick picture. That's going to be used as evidence against them, right? I mean, so you just go like, shit, a lot of stuff's going down early on. It's going to go down.
She goes to this little hotel with a guy who has a stuttering problem. And the Vargas boys, or not Vargas, whatever they call the Grandi boys come out. Like I said, from West Side Story. And they give her the railroad, and then they come in there and they make it look like you're gonna rape her, and then next thing you know, she's in a hotel, sleazy hotel back over there on the Mexico side, I think it was, something like that. And basically the whole plan was basically make it look like she was using and stepping out on her husband, and then he, just to try and blackmail him, because the whole thing is that Vargas had basically put away the Sanchez, his brother, and didn't want him to basically didn't want him to testify, get his brother out of prison.
Yeah,
but I said, like, everyone in that group though was so henchman-y. It was
red shirts, as we would
they're
call
not
them
the
in
most
Star Wars.
successful crime family.
So, like I said, to me, it's like them being kind of screwballs. It kind of made me laugh. I'm like, is this supposed to be a serious movie or a comedy movie at this point? Because I thought it's supposed to be more serious, because here you got a guy who's as an officer who is corrupt, who's has a career of framing people, plenty of evidence just to to close the case, and doesn't really care about it. He just wants to close the case, go back to whatever he wants to be doing. He didn't, and he's also comes out very prejudiced, and maybe he is racist, or maybe he's just sick and tired of all the hooligans,
Right.
It's hard to tell. But you got this guy played by Charlton Heston, who's kind of like all over the place. I feel bad for Jana Leigh. She should have just went back to the United States and got out of there, left.
Well, it's. I'm interested in the fact that with this movie, there seems to be a lot of like the adult stuff hinted at, like the one scene that's really fucking creepy to me in a way, but the tone of it is when Orson Welles goes into the brothel and he sees the madam there, and she's sitting there like, it's a middle top picture there of her smoking on the little stogie, which I love the stogies everybody had in here. And he's staring at her, and she's like, "We're closed, you can leave." And he goes, "Don't you remember an old friend?" She goes, "I didn't recognize you." And they're kind of talking about, I wanted more of her because it hinted at his past a little bit too. But this whole time I kept going, the strongest person in this film is Orson Welles' character. Now he might be past his prime, he might get it in the end or whatever towards, as we talk about the ending. But I just thought his weight really carried it, because without him, if you had just the Mexican crew that you're talking about, RDB, it would have been lampoonish. It would have been that. I think they were supposed to be just meant as low-level goofs, right?
Sure.
Honestly, so you can see that there's different tiers of corruption and all that. These guys can't possibly be dealing in dynamite or heroin.
I would have loved to have another heavy though, and her be the heavy and be leading she's the ma. Her husband Sanchez is in prison. That would have been much more interesting, because now because she's very cunning, comes out very cunning, and Orson Welles has to deal with her and all this too. It would have been a much more interesting movie for that.
Yeah, I can't agree with that. I think she was just kind of, she was just like a prop in his downfall.
Yes.
Kind of like she's just there as a reminder of how it was spiraling for him. Mm-hmm. There's the scene at the end when he goes, "What's my future? You don't have a future. Your future's all used up."
Well, it also, if you think about what we've just talked about with his character, that kind of actually primes you for the scene where, even though they're stupid and goofy, the Grandi kingpin kind of guy gets him into the bar to talk over, to kind of make palsy, like, "Hey, the enemy of my enemy is or my friend," kind of thing, or whatever, where he's like, "Hey, we can go up against Vargas." But the whole key thing here is, despite the fact he walks with a limp and a cane and all that, is he's a reformed alcoholic. So when he's sitting there talking to him, he just sets down the glass of whiskey and he says, "No, it's just da 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 da," and he gets a phone call and he's like, "What's that?" Da da da. And just watching Orson Welles look at the drink, listen to the guy in the background while he's talking, and it's like, oh, this guy's good, even though he's a stupid street thug. He takes the top level guy here who is spiraling, and he pushes him over the cliff a little bit by making him a drink, because that's really when things go downhill for him. I thought that was just just an absolutely fantastic scene by Orson, just sitting there watching him kind of grumble and expression on his face. And that's one of the things we say about physical actors. they don't have to be good actors in talking, which I think Heston has a tendency to do, these Shakespearean kind of guys. But the real good ones can just sit there, and act drunk, and you believe it with their face. And Orson, I'm looking at him going, man, I knew intellectually how good he was and what I always thought of him. I certainly don't know his catalog as well as maybe, people do. But damn, watching him again, it just reemphasizes just how awesome he is. Seriously, it just really is a great film. And I can't argue with you, RDV, saying Heston's maybe not at his peak in here. I don't think he's bad, but he Hestons it, doesn't he?
Yeah, he very much is at this point. I'm Charlton Heston. The way he acts. Don't worry, baby. I can take care of it. Don't worry. You just go over there. And
now, Eric, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
RDV and I, years ago on here, we reviewed a local old exploitive film from Central Florida over in the Tampa area called Impulse. It had William Shatner in his 70s bit after Star Wars or after Star Trek. And after Star Trek, he was kind of broke in the 70s, right? Yeah. So he took this role over and he plays a serial killer gigolo. And this thing is so fucking low budget, but there's something about watching it because you go, can Shatner really go against type? But when you watch him, there are levels to him. And he's been good in some Columbo stuff. I mean, I know he's a bit of a ham, but there's talent there. Now, in your opinion, I really have no idea how esteemed you think of Charlton Heston with all the stuff that he's done.
I don't think he's one of the great actors, but he commands a presence in anything he's in. When I think of the acting performances in this movie, I think it was Akim Tamiroff as Grandi. I thought was excellent. Obviously, Orson Welles was next level. And Janet Leigh was good. So I don't know. I said it's. I mean, I'm a Heston fan, but I'm not. I said it's almost unfair for other performers to be in the same movie with Orson Welles playing this Hank Quinlan part, because you realize just how damn good he is. And to carry that a step further, this same year he made a movie with Paul Newman called The Long Hot Summer, where he plays a benevolent town guy that basically owns the town.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to see another side of him. I mean, some of the it's some of what you see here, you see there, but it's a totally different character and he plays it totally differently. And you realize the guy he was, like I said, next level. Whereas I think Charlton Heston would have been the same guy in that, because you're right. I said, but you know what? James Garner was the same guy in everything he did. Most actors were. Cary Grant is Cary Grant in everything he's in.
Right.
You get guys like Paul or Orson Welles, and go back a couple decades, Paul Muni. There weren't many guys that could lose themselves in roles in this era. And Orson Welles was certainly one of them, but I don't think Heston was.
There's a line from I think it's Terminator. No, what's the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, RDV, that's got the comic in it from the 90s. They got the little puppy dog. He's trying to play a housewife. I'm losing the name, but it was Cameron's film, not Terminator 2. You know what I'm talking about.
With a puppy dog.
Jamie Lee Curtis is in it.
True Lies.
True Lies. So in True Lies,
you say puppy dog, I think of a dog, bro.
Because it's got the one young female actress, and I just remember, and then Arnold's walking the small dog in the rain across there. But what it is in True Lies is I think Charlton Heston is their field boss, right? And I remember him talking about it, going, "You've got Arnold Schwarzenegger, at his peak here in this major blockbuster, and the point is in the scene, they got to find an actor who can intimidate Arnold, who can do that, and then that's where Heston's got the shaved kind of look there, and I think he's got the patch over the eye, and he's just yelling and berating him. And so those kind of roles for Heston meat and potatoes. He's just so fantastic. And I know people make fun of it, and I don't mean this in a bad way, because he was starting to get Alzheimer's in the 90s. But when he did that Wayne's World 2 cameo where Wayne breaks the fourth wall and says, I'm sorry, can we get a better actor in here? Hello. And then they bring him Heston, and he's like, oh, the girl on Mulberry Street back when I was young. And he just does his thing, and you're looking at him, and he's doing it, tearing up, but he is that good. It's just Orson Welles is that much better. He really, really is. And I'm not trying to sell you on an RDV, but I mean, that's just the kind of, with Orson, it just hits you on the head. You're like, holy crap. I mean, there's a God of gods. I can't, that would be a Titan, and I can't argue
I thought that was better acting in that movie right there, that line, than it was in this movie.
I could see that.
Yeah. This came off like Planet of the Apes. Why are you in this movie? Damn dirty apes.
Oh, I love Charlton Heston. God, I love Charlton Heston. Man,
when Heston's, that's when the movie takes a totally different direction. And I was like, this was Hestoning, but it was like, why? Was this supposed to be more serious, more of like a corrupt cop, corruption, everything? And it just felt like it was like when they threw Heston there, his scenes just derailed the movie for me. I liked Orson Welles in here. I thought he was really well. Everyone was really great. It's just that when you brought in Heston, and then you brought in when Orson Welles is surrounded by all the goons, yes, man, sure, boss, yeah, laughing, and just they're all sitting around, especially when they're trying to, they're planning the evidence for the bomb, for that poor kid, and it's just like they're all sitting around like it's like a bunch of like high schoolers, like jocks bullying a bully, a little nerd,
Again, but he turned out to be guilty.
Yeah, he did. I know, but it's just like, it was just a weird thing. It was just like, yeah, boss. No, yeah. And one guy's sitting there praising him the whole entire time. Yeah, our boss is always closing cases. I'm thinking like,
well,
shut up, Luke.
There's a spot and during that scene where Heston was in the bathroom. He saw the box because he knocked it over.
Yep.
And that's the box that the dynamite was found in.
Yes, that was it.
It's like no one cares to know the truth because Hank Quinlan is such a legend in that town. It's just, I said that just the layers in this movie I found to be fascinating. I said,
it felt like an old movie where like there was no government. It was just these guys were the law. The sheriff,
right?
It was the law.
It's because they were.
Yeah.
But we can't. Before we wrap this up, give a shout out to Dennis Weaver, because I knew him. I had obviously seen Years of McCloud. Other people had seen him in Gunsmoke.
That's McCloud.
He's the half retarded hotel employee that kept saying they got another thing coming.
I did not like that.
Gunsmoke,
but he was fantastic in the role. It was a creepy ass role, but he was very good.
Yep. He was in Gunsmoke for a while too. Before that,
I would say that, like I said, I think the movie visually is quite stunning. It's a 10 out of 10. All the different roles and stuff, I can see where Heston stands out. Everyone's kind of got their own thing to him or whatever, but this movie does, and it does it in a certain kind of way that makes you feel a little grimy when you're watching it, and sleazy with corruption and maybe a fatalistic type ending. It would have been better, so to speak. But it's, it just grabbed me from the beginning, and it really made me feel like, wow, it's this is what a noir film is. And it just, the angles, the light, the somewhat irregular angles that Orson decided to capture. It all seems to work in it too. It's like there's a mystery, in watching it, in addition to whatever story's going on. And people can say and talk a lot of things, but the reality is different. And that's the beautiful things about hard-boiled detective films, whether it's the Maltese Falcon or other classic ones too. Chinatown from the 70s, it might be a modern noir. John Huston's, I believe, directed that. So that there's a certain feeling and vibe to it that you have to get into it. Some people actually call Blade Runner noir as well. I know there's some different variations with voiceovers and unicorns and the endings and stuff, but it's like good fantasy going from the 70s to 80s. There's a small revival of it, and then it just went away because the hardcore audience that appreciates all that, it's not big enough to really be viable unless you can make it cheap enough, which you almost can't. And I don't know, this movie kind of had the same effect on me visually, RDV, that Sorcerer did from Friedkin that we reviewed, because the thing about Sorcerer is I can't explain to you intellectually why this occurred, but I can tell you that it looked like every shot and effect was practical, and them going through the swamp and then getting to the bridge
That
sequence
was
is like it's more nerve-wracking to me than almost anything I've ever watched.
Yes.
And I don't know how to explain it, but it's even though it's a film and they did safety stuff, it's still real. It's not CGI, it's not whatever. But the way you can shoot movies, you can evoke a certain kind of mood just with black and white. And I think that's really freaking clever. It's different when you got colors and a lot of things that can distract you in the background, right?
The camera angles, I'm thinking like Michael Mann must have been a fan of this film because the different angles and just they're shooting everything. It was really cool that too. I said it very came off, very well as produced. I said the only thing the only thing that derailed the movie for me was Charlton Heston. Otherwise, I thought it was actually well made. And everything else, I loved the lines from everybody else. It's just that Heston was a bad fit for me. That's all.
I understand. I got it.
And
I've heard that before with some actors and certain things for sure. I think Tom Hanks is an absolutely horrible actor, generally speaking, and he's only been good in a couple movies. And but my opinion doesn't matter. It's what you like is what you like, and if it works for you, and if somebody's a bad actor and you still like watching them for some reason, that's fine too. And Heston's one of those guys that's always gotten kind of both sides of it. For sure.
You just brought up that movie. I forgot the name. The one with the with Roy Schneider.
Sorcerer.
Sorcerer.
Mm-hmm.
Sorcerer was like I said. That movie. I said if you have never seen that, Eric, that is just a very intense movie the whole entire time, and it just really works for it.
I was gonna say, it's unfortunate that Charlton Heston ruined this for you, because I'm pretty sure it was a Charlton Heston vehicle and it was going to be him anyway he sliced it. A couple of things I said. This was taken from a book by Wade Miller called Badge of Evil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Orson Welles, by the time he got done with it, you can read Badge of Evil and you don't. I mean, it's so different, but and there's also a couple blink and you'll miss them. It's obviously they got Marlene Dietrich. Zsa Zsa Gabor is the madam in the brothel.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph Cotton has a bit part as the coroner. Joseph Cotton was Orson Welles, maybe not partner, but they were like the Mercury Theater. He was Orson Welles' right-hand man and made Citizen Kane and the Magnificent Ambersons and another movie. Rob, have you seen The Third Man?
I have. It's been forever, but I have.
But if I said, if there's anything that was unique about that movie, would you say it was the zither? The odd sounding instrument?
Yeah, because and again, also, context is important, right? You talk American audience, you talk about something where people are more musically educated way back then, but when something stands out, it jumps to the forefront. And much like Heston jumped to the forefront here for whatever reason, maybe his cadence or his lack of Mexican prowess or whatever, for whatever reason, that can make things interesting, right?
But the reason why I brought that up was the music in Touch of Evil, that is almost like the carnival sound.
Mm-hmm.
I said, to me, that brought as a unique touch to this movie as the zither did to The Third Man. And I think that's, whether it was Orson Welles responsible for those, it's just little things like that to me that added to this movie.
So I'll say this about the music thing, then I'll have one last comment before we wrap it up. With the music here, again, the whole long crane shot at the beginning is worth it for nothing more, whether you like the film or not. It to me, that's like essential viewing. Because of all the action going on there. And when I talk about that visually, with people walking across the street, car moving. But the thing is you also have the breeze, quote unquote, blowing where things are moving in the background. It looked like a lot of this was actually shot at dusk too, and some stuff was spliced together, maybe. But the point is you've got visually a lot of things going on. Even though it's focused on one central thing, your eyes are going to all this other stuff. You've got all the black and white stuff going on. You've got the natural light there in the background. but there's hints of like the music from when they're in the bar, and I forget what they call it, like in video games, where like if you get close to something, you get a certain type of music, and then it fades out as you go farther away, and then you get a different one. Because that kind of, it doesn't overpower you in this film, but it does kind of come in and out depending on what's going on. So it's like more of a haunting sort of tease to me, rather than the just gigantic thing that we would get in, say, I don't know, Psycho, the or whatever, with the knife going in that's in your face. So it was just I think it was clever on his part not to let it dominate, because there's so much going on, the visual stuff, them talking, the stuff in the background, the lighting, the music, and to put it all together where one thing doesn't dominate or distract you from the main thing, which is them crossing the street, meeting basically everybody, and then having the big whatever's happening, the bomb and the explosion right there on the border. I mean, that's, like I say, that is God tier to me. And RDV, all I'm going to say is the quote I wrote in here early on about nobody throws acid at God was a direct reference to when one of the Grandi boys tried chasing them down there in the bar, and he gives them the razor's edge stunt into it. I'm like, yes,
Yeah,
that was
right into the table
already. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the last time I saw somebody throw acid at somebody was in Batman.
Or Westworld.
Yeah, Westworld.
All right, let's go around the room for final thoughts. I just gave mine. RDV?
Final thoughts? So how does Orson Welles go from being a skinny guy to getting that much weight? Did he have medical issues?
Oh, if you think he was big in this, watch a Dean Martin celebrity roast.
He got bigger.
Yeah, he did. He I don't know how the man moved around. Okay, I want you to take a look at that.
Yeah, he had a cane, remember?
Yeah, a Citizen cane. Look at that man in that picture. Yeah. That man at one time was married to Rita Hayworth.
Yes, and made her cut her hair.
Yeah, but think about it. Yeah, how you went from being, able to marry Rita Hayworth. Now, okay, to be fair, Mickey Rooney,
Mickey's up there with Sinatra as far as a conquest.
Derek Jeter.
How tall was Orson Welles? He had been like over 6 feet, right?
Oh, he was. Yeah, I'd say probably about 6'4".
The shot is the same height as Heston here. I noticed in a lot of scenes because Heston's a legit 6'3", 6'4".
See, I think Orson Welles looked a lot better. There's photos of him where he had the goatee and the hair slicked back.
Yes.
He had in this. He looks just like a run-of-the-mill guy who just
Well, he's playing a 60-something-year-old man here.
Yeah.
And pulling it off because you don't want Quinlan is not going to be well groomed.
No.
Now, but okay, Will Varner in Long Hot Summer, same year, different story.
See what was missing from his character though? Having a Snicker bar or something like that, a candy bar in his hand the whole time.
He liked to eat and drink. He talked about that stuff. He liked a good meal.
Yeah, I think it was Saturday Night Live that made a whole. Was it Saturday Night Live or was that Matt T made a skit about Orson Welles being drunk and doing a commercial? Trying to shoot a commercial. He was drunk.
He did some in the
was that real life
70s, Paul Masson wine, and I remember somebody said to him they tried making a comment about his weight, and he goes, "Yeah, well, you're ugly. I can always lose the weight." He was very disarming when it came to that. The few times I saw him, it's amazing because if you go back and you watch old interviews, they're just such a more, I don't know what the word is, adult kind of conversation. And I always go back to Carson and stuff like that, where you just let the guy talk. And a lot of these older people, for the most part, Betty Davis would be on a lot, even if she was half drunk. It was more intelligent, more fun than the Jimmy Fallon shit we get today.
I was just say this. I didn't care much for the story plot of this movie because it was all over the place for me. But like I said, I do agree with the way as Orson Welles directed this. So the lighting, the camera angles, all that stuff, the music added to this, it made it a good movie for me. It's just that the only thing I didn't like was Charlton Heston.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fair enough. I mean, I like the fact that
his little mustache too. I just I'm just
love it. With the pencil thin thing.
Because you can tell he was wearing blackface.
Yeah, you can.
I was like, man, they put a lot of toner on him just for the role for black and white. I mean, they literally all they had to say was that his mom was mixed. His mom was Mexican, whatever, and his dad was white. That's all they had to say was that,
Yeah.
But if they wanted to be a Mexican authority thing, it's just saying like, living over. That's the only thing that was unbelievable for me was Heston being Mexican or
But
being
it's
over
safe to
there.
say you'd recommend it though.
Yeah,
That's
I'd still
the
recommend this. Check out this movie because that's the one thing I like about movies that I may not know the like story plot, but I love how it's shot, the scenery, the background, and just for historical things. Especially if you didn't grow up in the 40s or in the 50s, that time period, looking at the way things were done in movies versus today, where everything's all CG edited in and stuff. Look at Superman when he was flying; he wasn't even really flying; it was fake. No. And then his hair was even fake too. In that scene where in the trailer, it was all CG flapping.
No matter how good CGI is,
No.
when it's primary, you lose like the depth. There's something I don't
Yes.
even know what to call it. The sensation to your brain, even though you know it's a movie and it's not real,
There's
your
also
brain can still be tricked into believing that.
so also when the bad guy who's really bad really gets what's coming to him. That's usually the big payoff for these movies too.
It was kind of cool at the end.
Yeah.
It's a nice little cat and mouse at the
Let's
end.
just say there was a wire in this film.
One of
And,
the first
and Coco didn't go after it, Breen.
Yeah. Well, Eric, you're the infrequent occasional guest on here, and you've been around since the beginning with us, so it's always cool. And so you came up with this, and we recorded Laura offline, which I'd recommend people to check out.
I'm still glad I watched it though, even though I didn't enjoy as much as I thought it would. I went into it because a lot of movies I will not go watch because I just don't like the trailer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Never been like excited about Alfred Hitchcock or Orson Welles, so it was like, and seeing that Charlton Heston was in this and Janet Leigh, it kind of irk me to want to do this too.
Well, it's always interesting because, like I say, back in the day, people would argue about what they thought the best 10 films of all time were, and it was always, for the most part, a select group. That's changed over the past couple of decades, I think, but this is always up there and probably still is, I would think, at least from my opinion, it would be.
Yeah.
So whether you like it or not, I agree with you. Sometimes it's worth going, okay, you think this is the best? Why? Or that, why?
Yes.
Or, oh, I get it. I can see what they have in common or something too.
Yeah.
But Eric, obviously you speak very highly of it. Here's your chance to gush.
Yeah, tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, no, you're not wrong because it's your opinion. It's how you feel about something. It's you didn't say it's a bad movie. I didn't like it. It's a bad movie. No, you said you didn't like it. I mean, there are, I'm sure I would fall asleep multiple times watching The English Patient, but I'm sure it's a fantastic.
I've never watched it either. So, maybe.
I said this to me. Orson Welles is the most gifted everything that Hollywood's ever produced. And this movie, like I said, just it's weird. I can barely, even though it's one of my favorite movies of all time, when I think about this movie, I don't even get around to thinking about Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
Because this is the Hank Quinlan story with the Vargas family drama and it's like a backdrop. And even when, they set him up, and even though he has to get his at the end, there's still a little part of me that goes, it feels bad for him because, here's a guy that was, for as smart as he was, he basically kept outsmarting himself, that he probably didn't have to do the things that he did that brought about his downfall. Because, and I said, when they threw it at the end, it turns out that the kid really was guilty. You realize, and then there's also, I said, how many times did he have to manufacture evidence to get to the correct conclusion? Because how many times in real life is someone obviously guilty, but they can't prove it? So like a murderer walks. So he was willing to take those extra steps, and it destroyed him over time. And so I said, I think it's just, to me, it's just a marvelous story of a once great man's downfall. And, it just, I think this movie just worked on every level from the opening shot that I think was like almost 4 minutes of uninterrupted. That's not easy to do. The opening scene of The Player is now like the longest opening, uncut or whatever they call that. But no, I said, I love this movie. I can't recommend it highly enough. I wish Orson Welles had made more movies like this, because honestly, a lot of the stuff he did are things that I will never have interest in because I don't care. I'm not a big Shakespeare guy or that kind of stuff. I mean, I really like the Magnificent Ambersons, and he doesn't act in it, but he made the movie. But but a lot of stuff he made was just just too. I want to say like too. I'm not all that interested in seeing Jane Eyre. I mean,
But even Jane Eyre, I think, was shown in our class, when we would do classics, because that's how big of a film it was then. Because a lot of them were, at the time, somewhat recent, right, back in the 70s and 80s. Now, Eric, I don't know if you're a sports guy. I'll kind of say this. In my heart of hearts, I'm a basketball guy, but I do love a lot of sports. I'm a sports guy. Wilt Chamberlain was physically the best athlete that the human race has ever produced. He's the biggest, fastest, strongest of all of them. The rules were a lot more complex back then for all the sports guys out there that say someone like, LeBron's a better specimen, or Luka Doncic currently, or other ones. I just kind of like laugh and go, you just don't know. And I look at somebody like Orson Welles and go, what you said at the beginning is absolutely true. The most talent. Wilt Chamberlain could do whatever he wanted. Did he win the most? No. But he could do anything and still do it as good as anybody, and it's very rare. And the very famous quote that I think even Wilt Chamberlain might have said about himself too, to kind of add to his myth, is that nobody roots for Goliath. And I think that's kind of the thing I think about with Orson Welles. He's just that good that people just go, "Oh yeah, Orson Welles is good." He made, and they usually don't even say this. They say the other film, right? So you're kind of Citizen Kane. They don't, but you can't get better than what he's done. You just can't. I've yet to see anybody do it, whether it's Spielberg, whether it's anybody. I'm a John Carpenter fan. I think he's immensely talented, but Carpenter's like the guy that can drop 40 points on you, but is happy giving 30, or I don't know what. I don't know. I'm glad he's B tier, but he would make his own films. But Orson, Jesus Christ, what a phenomenal talent. I mean, he is the Hall of Fame. He is a titan above all the gods. And I imagine at some point we'll try to get some more Orson Welles under our belt here on the Extreme Movie Show too. And trust me, RDV, not a lot of these Orson Welles films has Heston in it.
Well, the one that interests me the more, if I'm looking at it, is The Third Man. I noticed I like a lot more movies from the 40s. It seems like every time I try to watch a movie from the 50s, I'm just not really into it. So I don't know what that's all about for me personally, but I just love the 40s and just the way the things that they made films.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Well, I'd be interested if you have your guys' take on the Long Hot Summer. It's Tennessee Williams-ish, but without the people. Usually, bad things happen to people usually in Tennessee Williams movies. But,
you mean they have an adult nature to them, sir?
Cat on the Hot Tin Roof, was excellent. But exactly, if you like Paul Newman, but Long Hot Summer is another one where you get a good chunk of Orson Welles acting, and like I said, Paul Newman when he was really coming into his own, because it was made the same year as Cat on the Hot Tin Roof, so 1958 was a good year for movies. But I wouldn't mind doing that someday. I guess if you had to call it something, it'd be maybe like a melodrama, but it's more interesting. And less soapy.
Yeah.
But like I said, Lee Remick at the height of her superpowers, Tony Franciosa, Angela Lansbury played Orson Welles' long-suffering girlfriend.
And Angela Lansbury's great. I know everyone thinks of her as from the 80s, the TV show she did there, the CBS one, name escapes me.
Murder, She Wrote.
Murder, She Wrote, which is cute. But she, even on that show, they had a lot of older actors that she worked. But she was great on a bunch of other stuff. She's a really good actress. She really is.
Watch Gaslight sometime.
That's exactly what I'm thinking of there too. Where you're like, man, she's a big
part, but she's she plays the maid. But,
This Long Hot Summer kind of reminds me of The Hot Spot with Don Johnson, but I don't think they're the same. It's got Jennifer Connelly in it.
I think I've seen that once.
It's like a Norrish kind of thing, but
Well, Long Hot Summer's not noir. It's just takes place over a long hot summer, and Paul Newman plays a character that comes to town who's been accused of barn burning.
Yeah.
But so it's like how he kind of just insinuates himself into the Varner family and creates chaos among Will Varner's actual son, played by Tony Franciosa, and he falls for his daughter, played by John Woodward. Their art imitating life. But it's really well done, and it's a good movie. I said it's very enjoyable, and there's, like I said, a lot of really good acting performances.
No, Richard Anderson's in here. $6 million man guy, the boss.
Yeah, he played, his character's gay, but they couldn't say it.
Right.
But you have to, when you watch the movie, you realize, yeah, he is.
Nice. Yeah, this sounds like a winner.
Every time you say the name of that movie, I think of A Wet American Summer. Paul Rudd.
Well, I think they were influenced by some of these, and they've just done recently to it. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Touch of Evil, Orson Welles, a great film. Definitely, if you're into film, it's something to check out. It's a classic. It really is phenomenal.
Yes.
Try to see the best that you can.
Check out later this week. We'll be uploading our review of Laura from 1944. Gene Tierney and Danny Andrews. I think it was Cliff Burton.
Clifton Webb.
Clifton Webb. Sorry, yeah.
And a young Vincent Price.
And a young Vincent Price. Yeah. So first time watches for Ali, and I also for Rob on that one. And Brain also joined us on that one too as well. So look for that this week. And also we're going to be reviewing Tulsa King on this Tuesday around 8 p.m. Eastern, the newest episode. So thank you. Shout out to everybody who's jumped in here. Tom Baker is I don't think I've seen you before on the comment section or in the chat, but welcome. Everyone's welcome to watch and review. We always love everybody's comments here. Desert Rose, thanks for popping in here. Verity is what Princess. Always great to see you here to see you in here as well. And hey, Extreme Movie Show's in there too as well. Oh.
Yes. Yes. I was busting Tom's balls a little bit, but that's all in good faith, because I think Tom Baker's the best of all of them. And Pixel basically was speechless, but we'll have that argument another time. When he can handle it. Yeah.
Yeah. Tom Baker, is that the one with the scarf?
From the 80s.
Carol Reed wrote the book that The Third Man was based on, correct? Because I think he also wrote Our Man in Havana, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well, I still think these old films carry on the same tradition of new films that based themselves off the book and basically have nothing to do with them for the most part. So, Jason Bourne, I'm looking at you. James Bond, I'm looking at you. But you could say that about anybody. But that's an interesting conversation to have another time too. Now it's great discussion. A lot of people showing up tonight with the classic. You never know what you're going to get, and that's why I really like talking just kind of off the cuff and organically here on the Extreme Movie Show.
And as we get closer to Christmas, we're going to start doing some more black and white Christmas movies or Christmas adjacent,
and get to see Janet Leigh again.
Yeah, right.
Not his son.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank RDV for running some of the stuff here, and also Eric for showing up tonight, and everybody that showed up tonight. I appreciate everybody tweeting us out the links, letting people know we exist and all that too. We've been growing a pretty decent clip this year here too, so that's nice. It's just as a hobby project, it's growing pretty good. So again, if you have any particular movies or TV shows you'd like us to consider to review, let us know. Reach out to us and all that too. We definitely take that under advisement. We love it. So Tuesday night, Tulsa King. See you there.
Leave us comments either on a post that we have here or the community post or in the comment section of this movie as far as movies that you think they strongly think that we should review. There are some older classic ones from the 40s and 50s. All right. Thanks, guys.
Good night now.
Good night.